Good morning, everybody. You're a new community to me. I'm usually a tech business kind of guy. I've written and spoken a lot about social media, and I've been writing a book with my frequent colleague, Robert Scoble. It's called The Age of Context, and the subtitle may change, but right now it's How It Will Impact Your Work and Your Life, which is pretty comprehensive. And we didn't start this book with any plan to have anything to do with privacy whatsoever. We went around, as we've done before, and we've talked to a lot of people, entrepreneurs and technologists, about this cool stuff that they're making. It's in 5 categories. You know the categories independently: mobile, social media, data, of course, location-based technologies, and sensors. We look at how these 5 are converging into what we consider a superstorm. And the result of the superstorm is that people and their technology are going to have a new level of closeness, a relationship that is different than we're used to having with machines of any kind. And among the reasons that it will be so close is your devices are going to know everything about you. They're going to know your health, your business, your schedule, your calendar, your friends, what kind of email you like first. They're going to know everything. And based on that, they're going to be able to anticipate what you want next, which can get eerie, as I'll tell you about. Well, we went around talking to people who are making these technologies. We realized that there was a freaky line. It's funny, when I said freaky line, I was reminded to stay in front of this line so you can see me. Never mind. And every time we looked at something like what's going on in retail or in health or in automotive, we found this freaky line. And it involves 2 powers that don't seem opposing. They're like concentric circles. I'll get back to them later. One is security and one is privacy. Sometimes these 2, as you know from recent events in the news, can be in conflict. But before I get to what I think about that, let me tell you a little bit about what we found. And I know you know a few of these, and I'll rattle them off rather quickly. In retail, Heineken and Walmart are working with an Argentinian company called Smart Perception. They created a sensor panel. They use American sensors from PrimeSense, and they go on above a section in a retail store. So if you go into the store and you're looking for cereal, they will know not who you are, they can't see your face, but they'll know what you're looking at. If you reach out and touch a box of Cheerios, an iPad installed as a display on the shelf will offer you 40% off on the Cheerios, or perhaps it'll be a competing offer from another cereal saying, instead of Cheerios, try Kellogg's K, and we'll give you 30% off. This is one thing going on in retail. A whole other way of looking at it is the National Football League using, you'll love it, the New England Patriots as their test case, are working on contextual technologies in the stadium. Why are they doing this? Because their real competition has become HBO. Not HBO, HDTV. People are staying home and watching football games, and they're going to taverns. But every year, the stadiums are losing about 2% of their attendance. Patriots have always been the flagship for new technologies. And they're working on using data, mobile apps, and other technologies so that their best customers can get their beers in advance, their food in advance, or anything, the bling that you buy at football games. So these fans sit in the best seats, of course, they're season pass holders, and they get a little note saying, halftime will be in 5 minutes. Do you want another beer and cheesesteak? And if they claim yes, There's an express line. They go up there. They don't have to pay for it because their credit card is on file as it is everywhere else. And so now you have a contextual beer. This, of course, will spread from the Patriots to the rest of the NFL, other sports, rock concerts, and everything else. So everything I talk about has bigger implications than the little thing I'm mentioning. We all have loyalty cards. We put them on our keychains and in our wallets, and they do things. But these are starting to be linked up. We're getting more and more data. So the smart loyalty cards are now coming in. They're in trial stages. But big companies will be using them, I would guess, in the next 2 or 3 years. So now when you walk into a Payless, they know how often you're in here. They know what you usually buy when you're in here. They're starting to understand by a sensor on the card the path you take while you walk through there. And as you walk through, you can start getting special offers on things based on what your buying habits have been in the past. We think this will be in every retail operation. Right now, people call it contextual marketing when you're in a mall and suddenly you get 40 offers to get discounts everywhere, and it's just another form of noise. Filtering is going to come in so that the customization is there and you're going to start seeing things that maybe you want. Filtering is important because the same technology is going to be used by first responders who run into a burning building and don't need to know they can get 10% off on a cup of Starbucks coffee. They do need to know other facts, and they will get to know them fast. Health is one place that is just amazing on what is going on. There are a few products that you may know. I noticed that Trevor was wearing a Nike Fuel Band. Nike Fuel Band gives you some basic information that helps people lose weight, stay fit, but it's where it's going and what other technologies are also doing in wearable devices. They're starting to know every function of your body, your glucose level, your heartbeat, your galvanic skin, which basically means the perspiration, which shows your nervousness, whether you have neurological health or not, and other such things. And this is all for you, for your personal health, except it's being gathered and put in the cloud as a data source. Where this data will be used today is not in danger. Where it will be used 10 or 20 years or 5 years in the future, I don't know. Geomedicine is something else that we discovered we never heard of before. There's a clear relationship between your health and where you live. If you live in a coal mine, you're more prone for emphysema. If you live in the mountains, cancer. If you live near a polluted river, then the drinking water you have can lead to intestinal problems. It's only now being used not by the health industry, but this bottom-up movement of people who are using technology for better health. One of the applications we came across in this area is from a company called, a Midwestern company called Asmopolis. I think I said it right. Yes. The Asmopolis application has a sensor device that goes on top of an asthma patient's breathing inhaler, and at the same time has a mobile app. And it collects data on where people use their inhalers. In New York, a school was part of the pilot program, high school level, and they discovered that asthmatic children, excuse me, I get all choked up when I talk about asthma, I don't know why. Asthmatic children walking to school would always breathe the inhaler in the same place. And they discovered that they're rather close to a refinery. So by getting the kids to reroute themselves by 1 block, they stopped the kids from having asthma attacks every day as they walked to and from school. There are many other applications that are being worked on. We looked at cities. We have a chapter called The Contextual Cities, and there's a lot of stuff that's fascinating. How 3D modeling is creating, as it has in Seattle, major urban projects that come in on time, on budget, or even under. This is by dramatic contrast for those of you from New England on something called the Big Dig. that was 44 years late and $55 billion over the original budget, and they got away with it. That leads to another issue, which is that there is a trend that in the contextual cities, we talk about the new urbanists. Some of you that I met last night are new urbanists. Demographically, we all left home very often in the suburbs, went to college, moved into the city for a few years, got a job there, then got married and moved back out to the suburbs, but this is reversing and people are staying in the city. They're using zip cars rather than owning cars. They are starting to raise families there, and they want better schools, and they want better government, and they want urban projects that don't ruin their neighborhoods, and they're demanding better access to government. And surprisingly, on the municipal level, a lot of cities, Vancouver, San Francisco, New York, Chicago, Washington, of course, is a forward thinker in this area, Chattanooga, are all putting more and more of city data in the cloud where voters have access to it. And this is changing the relationship between urban planners and constituents, because the urban planners are finding it's a lot safer and better to get the input in the planning phase rather than after the damn thing gets built. Cars. Cars are my favorite. Cars, we can get to the contextual car, the self-driving car. That's technologically sooner than regulators will probably allow it to be. But what's more interesting is this thing called a data log. Earlier this year, John Broder, a New York Times reporter who often... Already? I just got here. Okay, thank you very much. John Broder, a New York Times reporter who usually covers the White House, likes to review cars. And he reviewed the Model S Tesla a while ago and gave it a really awful review. It culminated not in Boston where it was supposed to, but in Connecticut where it had to be towed away. And for those of you who know who Elon Musk is, he doesn't take this stuff easily. It turns out he had a data box in the car that reviewed everything that Broder did. And he did a fact-by-fact breakdown showing in his conclusion that Broder had to work very, very hard to make the car fail so badly. The New York Times ombudswoman wrote an op-ed page basically saying this is true. 5 years earlier, big business, the enterprise got into blogging when the vice chairman of General Motors started arguing with reviewers on the GM new blog called The Fast Lane. And he had to use the force of his personality, which he used very well, but we've come forward in technology where now data is on the side of the defense case, and you can take on the New York Times reviewer and prove your case factually. Data will be used in lots of ways with this little data box because it now knows who's driving by the seat position and that sort of stuff, what radio stations you listen to. It knows everywhere you go, and there is a record of this. You also have other devices. In this part of the country, you have Easy Pass. Where I live is Fast Pass. But every time you cross a toll gate, there's a picture taken showing where you were at a certain time. This data is collected. Can this be used by law enforcement in an investigation? Not definitely, but probably. But can it be used in a civil case when one party is divorcing the other and wants to see where a car was parked on a certain night? I'm going to wrap up, so I'll go right to Google Glass, which is something that's gotten a lot of news. Everybody's concerned about what happens when you go into a bathroom wearing them. Well, for one thing, if I took a video of you or a picture of you with Google Glass, it would light up, it would ding, you would know I was taking a picture. For another thing, I could only record what's directly in front of me, which in a restroom would be very unwise. Simultaneously, there's very little talk about the fact that Google knows everywhere your eye looks all the time when you're wearing them. So I have to go to wrap up very fast, and I'll rattle through these quickly. Hopefully we'll get to them in the Q&A again. We have a few conclusions. One is this is a very nuanced issue, this trade-off between security and privacy. And I can't tell you what you should do other than be aware and pay attention. To try to stop it at this point, as some people would like to do, is very idealistic. I think it's a little bit like standing on a beach and trying to punch a tsunami. First of all, you won't succeed, and second of all, you're going to find yourself in deep water. We use this stuff because there is this free ice cream thing. If you want to search on Google for free, that's really good stuff. That's free ice cream. In return for that, you have to let Google know more about you so they can give you better answers. It's a legitimate trade-off, but as you can imagine, there are many issues. I think Google is a very, very ethical company compared to other companies, but the people who run it now may not run it 5 years from today or 10 years from today. They all have nice retirement packages. The other thing is, I know many of you talked, last night my wife Paula and I heard a lot about policy. And policy is really nice, and I believe it. We're in New Hampshire, which 54 years after the first seatbelt laws were passed in Wisconsin, still doesn't require you to wear seatbelts in a car. They have on the license plate instead, live free or die, which I think is a real choice in this state. But the point of it is, technology is moving at a breathtaking pace. Public policy, regulation, and lawmakers don't. And if you try to get policy to control this, you need to leap forward beyond the issue of should this data be collected, because it is being collected and it isn't going to be stopped. And I bet right now somebody's going to tell me to shut up and get off the stage, so thank you very much.